Hey, all, welcome back to the Fishing for Men podcast, a part of Fishing for Men Ministries, which exists to help equip men build community and live lives transformed by Christ. We're grateful that you've decided to listen to us today. And this is actually part 2 of our Old Testament episode. It actually went a little bit longer than we were expecting, and so we decided to break it into 2. And so if you have not had a chance to listen to part 1, we would strongly encourage you to go do that first. In the first episode, we just kind of started to walk through some typical opinions of the Old Testament, how it's structured, and why it matters for us as Christians today. And so let's go ahead and jump into where we left off last, where we start to jump into describing the story of the Old Testament.
How would I describe the story of the Old Testament?
What are some major themes you might see that are like going along? Because it is 2/3 of it, so there's a lot going on there.
Well, I think the number one thing that we've already talked about a couple of times is it's a story leading up to something. So
I wish we could show that thing that you've showed us before.
Oh, my favorite Old Testament timeline, with the ups and downs and the spirally thing.
That looks like a tornado.
And I put Trogdor on it. Yeah. Have we ever actually properly followed through with show notes? If we did, we could.
Yeah. Or I wonder, because you can throw pictures up sometimes in the actual.
That's asking a lot of Mike. I'm gonna shoot for a link so that if listeners are interested, they can go do it.
That'll work.
Yeah. So it's a story leading to Jesus. It's the history of the nation of Israel. Covenants are another big thing that you talked on, and then I think it reveals the character of God. Those are the things. But since we already covered those, I have a feeling there's a different angle you're wanting to go with.
There's a lot of stuff. I think there are a lot of theological implications in understanding. First being the sovereignty of God. Now that's a big word, sovereignty. What does that mean, Brandon?
It makes me think of a king, like having ultimate authority.
Sure. Yeah. And so this is where Genesis 1 becomes super critical, because it says, in the beginning, God, which means there was always him. Nobody created God. And that gives him this ultimate authority over all of creation. And so...
Yeah, because without him, nothing exists.
We would not have breath in our lungs. We would not have anything. And so it's this picture that God is the one who is the beginning of everything. He is all powerful. And there's never a point where the Bible's like, oh yeah, God's kind of in control in this situation. Like, that doesn't ever happen, even though there's chaos going around. That's usually not because of God, or ever because of God. It's more or less because people decided to try to beat God. And we make really bad gods. And we find that out in the Old Testament.
That's the whole story of the Bible, more or less, is us trying to
there's
replace.
This plan, and that even though he has, the fact that he does have authority over everything, he has this plan that he's playing out. Both the good things that happen, but also the bad things that happen, that are then turned around and meant for good reasons. And so if you didn't know, listener, sometimes those bad things that are happening are actually good things that need to happen in order for you to grow.
It makes me think of Paul and talking about trials. You're the one who likes it, not me. No,
hey, we were talking about it earlier today about how, like, getting these trials and valleys and growing, we'll call them growing periods, where I'm
in one right now, and I can tell you it's,
And we as humans can't learn, unfortunately. I wish there was a different way, but we can't learn it another way rather than like walking through that experience.
It's that sinful nature, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so then there's this next theme of this holiness of God. And holy is one of those fancy Christian words, but it's pretty simple. What does holy mean, Brandon?
Set apart?
Yeah. He's different. He's distinct. He is unique and unlike any other God.
Wait, there's more than one God?
Go read the Old Testament. They seem to think there are. There's interesting words, even in Genesis, that
You're
talk
messing
about
with us.
Hey, we're trying to spur you into action. I think that's a good question for listeners to start to go check out for themselves. Brandon's looking at me like, shut up.
I'm like, you're dumping a lot on everyone today, and people are going to walk away being like, I don't know what I believe anymore.
It's time to go explore. It's the fun part of the Old Testament.
But you're not there to help them. You're just dumping it and running.
And this is why we do it in community,
I'm like,
Brandon.
let me give you Billy's personal phone number so you can text him when you're going through a faith crisis.
Although, hey, we'll give you the email at the end if there are questions that come up. We're happy to walk through those.
Yeah,
I think
that's very true.
I think those types of questions are something that, at least I know Brandon and I enjoy a lot, is taking those. We're not promising that we have all the answers, and in fact, we don't.
Absolutely not.
Like, not even close. But we love walking through those. All of these, anytime you have those questions are not an invitation to push back and turn away from them. They're actually an invitation from God to draw you in closer.
Yeah, because we're talking about him being the sovereign God of the entire universe, and everything exists within him.
And
he can
because
handle
of
your
him,
questions.
Yeah, exactly. He's well equipped to handle that. So holiness of God. He's revealed as an other being. Like he's just very different, and something that honestly, in this earthly body, like we will not ever fully understand that. And that is hard because we live in a world that really likes empirical evidence for everything and wants to be able to see and touch and be able to explain and have a rationale for all of that. And that is not the God that we serve. You're looking at me like you have a question.
Me? No.
Okay. We'll jump down because the holiness one, all these are pretty thick and heavy, quite honestly. The corruption.
Separate episodes,
yeah. But. Which maybe we will. Maybe we'll start to break some of these down and actually start to go through some of these. Corruption of humanity. Again, back to Genesis. The Old Testament is where we get why Jesus even needs to go to the cross in the first place. And that we are all corrupted deeply by sin. And that we need to be, the only way that we can actually be healed from that is through God, and we need a God, and we need somebody to come save us from this state that we are born into. And it just starts to show as you kind of start walking through the Old Testament of how we don't measure up to the righteousness that God wants us to be. And that's where Leviticus comes in and very much shows you that these are the ways in which you can worship God, but you're gonna mess these up. Like, it's just gonna happen. And so we start a lot and over and over and over again, and then you're gonna see these patterns start to repeat through the Old Testament. We're like, hey, I feel like I've been here before, and it's because
I feel like that in my own life.
And it's funny because once you start to see these patterns, you start to see them in your life today.
Well, yeah, I used to read the Old Testament being like, they're so dumb. No, they're walking towards the edge of the cliff. Why don't they see the edge of the cliff?
Or why are the Israelites in Exodus? They're so dumb. They have God right in front of them. They have a fire and they have a pillar of smoke. How could they not believe
it's
that
raining
God
from the sky?
And then you look at us and you go, "You silly people."
I do the same thing.
Yeah. And God's like, "I'm right here," and you're like, "Man, but I want this over here."
No, he lives inside of you, like literally, but that's not good enough.
Well, for the people that may listen, that maybe they haven't accepted Jesus, and maybe he's been pursuing you for a really long time, and he's been like, "Hey, I've been here and I've been pursuing you. It's time for you to come this way," because that's how, man, he did that to me, and I was like, "Oh man!" And then my eyes went, "Whoa." He really has been
pursuing
there in so many different ways. The mercy of God. This is, mercy is not getting what we do deserve. So this is tied into the corruption of humanity. We are guilty of our sins. We actually deserve death. And that's actually a really hard truth to come into reality with, is that as sinners, like, we do deserve that.
But aren't people mostly good?
Not according to the Bible.
You're messing with us again.
You're the one asking the questions. Something to chew on again. But But no, I mean, the Bible is pretty clear that we're born corrupted, and that
That's our default setting,
Mhm.
which
And-
stinks to think about.
it does, and what you deserve because of that is death, and that is not a fun thing to start to think about. And so, but God withholds punishment. You get to see that again through the Old Testament. You get to see. I mean, He is so patient with the Israelites, and then this is another thing where you get to see it in yourself when you're like, "Holy crap, God, you are so patient with me." And me and Katie have a joke where he's like, "Hey, I'm trying to get you to do this. Hey." And he does like 7 times. And I'm like, yeah, I still don't want to do it. And then he's like, come on.
But I can set that aside when I'm disciplining my kids. I want immediate
I want it now. The
obedience.
first time. I want the first time. But we have the Father that is, man, he's so patient with us.
Slow
And
to anger, just like he described himself.
And you
Yeah.
get to watch this play out. And I think that's hard too in the Old Testament because there's not always these like really clear timestamps of like how long one chapter was to the next. In our mind, we're like, man, he wasn't patient at all. But really, in reality, sometimes those are like
hundreds of years.
I'm like, holy crap, he was patient for 100 years.
Yeah. That's longer than I'm going to be alive, probably.
Yeah. And so you get to watch these play out. And then justice. This one's interesting because we have a very different view of justice in our Western society. There's really 2 different kinds that actually do play out in the Bible. One is retributive justice, which is what we're more accustomed to, which is payback for how you were wronged. And the other one's restorative. And this is the one that God tends to demonstrate quite a lot. He's not always just out to get payback for the people who've done wrong, but he's actually trying to restore humanity and creation back to what the original intent was. And that is an interesting view of justice because it's not one that we are really good at.
Actually, you know what's interesting? I would say we do see both of these in society today. In the political sphere, and they tend to fight with each other.
I thought you were going to say we actually prefer the retributive one.
Honestly, I think it depends on who you're talking to.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want to expand that one a little bit?
No,
It's
just
an
that I
interesting
think
thought, for sure.
traditionally our justice system is primarily based off of retributive.
Yeah.
I would say. If you commit a crime, then you have to pay something that society has decided as equivalent. You know, a simple version
I
of
can
that.
get like $1 million for a hot coffee that got spilled on me. Is that the payment for that?
Okay, Billy. No, let's keep it a little more simple. It's gotten convoluted and humans have messed with it. But on a simple level, like if you, and this isn't true in every state in the United States, but if you kill somebody,
Yeah.
you could potentially face the death penalty. So that would be an example of retributive. But restorative would be like someone's committing this crime. There's likely reasons behind why they're committing this crime. So rather than just punishing them, let's try to restore them back to society where they can be a contributing member.
Yeah. It's got me thinking Leviticus vibes here as we start to think through. Just because we have a very, like, when you start to get in justice office, it's going to tie back to things like laws and stuff like that. And Leviticus laws, the ones that God gave them, are written in a very different way than in which we like our laws to be written. Like if you go, I'm assuming somebody has one somewhere, but like it's probably digital now. But all the laws in the U.S., like we want a law for everything. If said thing happens, then X happens.
Yeah.
In
clear
Leviticus,
case by case,
yeah, they don't do that. They give you examples, and then there are people who are supposed to then discern and judge either up or down off of that scenario.
That sounds like the ethics stuff we're learning in counseling.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's really interesting. You get to watch God play out, hey, you need to take care of widows, orphans, and foreigners, and these 3 are repeated over and over again.
Yeah. The weak people in society, which I think ties back to what I was just talking about politics in the U.S. Now, I want to say I don't think that the Bible exists in a Republican camp or Democrat camp. I think it goes beyond that.
Yep.
It covers
People.
like a much wider spectrum and just human nature in general. But it's interesting to see different pieces of that reflected in the political systems that we've created. And just random thought as you were saying that, I think about like when Moses is at Mount Sinai and he gives the 10 Commandments. Now those were written down, but they were economical in the sense that like it wasn't a ton of words. It was a little bit, because when you're
Some
writing
even
on a
say
stone,
they're just called the 10 words.
yeah. So it's like not a lot of writing.
Yeah.
And you got to imagine they couldn't write.
Yeah.
I mean, they could write, but they
Yeah.
didn't have paper and other things readily available. So like it wouldn't be practical to have a 1,000 page law on a bunch of minuscule things. Like you couldn't.
Yep.
So it had to be that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last one, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but there's just this theme of expectation and longing and waiting for something greater. And like we talked about, at least in our Bibles, this is how the Old Testament ends, with this longing for that Messiah to come and save. And so each time somebody comes in, there's a silhouette that's put up against them of like, hey, is this him? Is this him? But every time that person fails until we actually get into the story of Jesus, and then he starts to reveal pieces, and you're like, oh, I wonder if that's him. And so I'm curious what that thought was like for the people that were in that time period. Where
You know what
I always I'm thinking, do you think they would have obviously some did know, but
You know what I think it's akin to, what I liken it to, is when you hear lots of people talking about end times in our day. So for example, like when Jesus,
another fun topic.
yeah, when Jesus came on the scene, Israel was under Roman oppression, and lots of people were desiring freedom for that. So they, for various reasons, thought that the Messiah was going to be almost like a warrior, in that he would come and lead the Israelites against Rome and throw them off, right?
In a battle, like an army battle. Yeah.
Yeah. So completely wrong. I mean, they did end up doing that in a much different way.
Certainly come to battle
in
in a different way.
Yeah, and the way that Rome got thrown off was not what they were expecting, and before that happened, their temple got destroyed, like not what people were expecting. So I think like today, how you hear all these theories about the end times, and people will bicker about that, and no, it's this, and no, it's that, and look at this verse, and look at that verse. Like, I think it's the exact same thing.
Yeah, people started to point like, oh, it's tomorrow, like it's happening.
We've had like in our group text, we've had people be like, I got this friend over here who's saying this stuff. How do I respond? Yeah. And it's about this like,
guys, it's next Wednesday.
Yeah, dude, you guys ready?
And then Thursday comes and you're like, still here. So yeah, and that's actually a really good analogy, I bet, for
I think it's relatable.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the wrap up for the Old Testament. Any other last thoughts, Brandon, of importance, significance, maybe even value that you've gotten out of the Old Testament?
Yeah, as far as value goes, just it has shown me the character of God in ways that you can't get if you only read the New Testament. I always think of like with any text in the Bible, some people will be like, "Oh, dude, why are you getting into all those details? You don't need to know that stuff." And that's true. My salvation isn't dependent upon that or anything. But
I heard a really good statement about this. That is like, the more you love God, the more you want to know God, and the more you know God, the more you want to love God. And
positive
it's a cycle that feedback, just keeps happening. And one of the ways in which we can really start to know who God is through His Word.
Absolutely. But you said it earlier, He is not fully knowable by us. So we can spend a lifetime doing that, and we will never get there. So to me, the Old Testament makes the entire story and the character of who God is richer and deeper the more that I get into it. I like a good balance of both, but definitely always have a good good dose of the Old Testament in whatever I'm doing.
Yeah, I've heard. I think Cody might do this actually, where he reads one partly new or partly old, a psalm, and new. Shake your head, yes, Cody. Yeah, Cody
He's shaking his head, yes.
And even the study,
Two and two. He's got little crab pictures going on.
Even the study that I have has actually broken it up, so I actually get a little bit of dose every week of both sides, and so it's cool. And I'm assuming they did this intentionally, but there's many times where I'm reading the new stuff and it's tying back to what I read in the old, and I'm like, I'm assuming this is intentional.
Yeah.
If not, really cool. But very much the same. Like, I had a very skewed view of God because I actually didn't open and read my Bible by myself until I was 32, and I'm 35 now. And reading through, again, I think we've mentioned this resource a bunch, which Tara Lee Cobble in the Bible Recap does a fantastic job of helping you to see these. And every time you read whatever the part of the plan is, you have to pick where you saw God's character. Mm-hmm. And man, that just reshaped, because you get to see all that. You get to see the Exodus passage like in action every day.
Yeah.
And
verse
so,
after verse after verse.
That was super meaningful, but much like you, like it's just created this depth into the New Testament. You're like, well, why did they say that? Okay, let me go check this out over here. Oh, that's why they said that. And even so much of Matthew and the Sermon on the Mount, this is what Jesus is challenging. It's like, hey, this is actually what this meant. He does a little interpretation exercise with us.
Yeah.
And so
I love it.
That's probably a really good, cool way to start too. Is like, go read Sermon on the Mount, see where those pieces where he said, you've heard it said, but I say to you, and then go find those back there and see how they kind of bounce off each other. So, any last parting words?
Go read the Old Testament. It's good stuff.
Yeah, buddy. Well, thanks, y'all. Really appreciate you joining us today. I hope this conversation just gave you some new perspective or lots of things to chew on.
Both.
We've thrown a bunch of
both.
them. But just how valuable the Old Testament really, truly is. And maybe it even challenged you in many different ways. Maybe challenged some beliefs and thoughts that you had, or maybe it actually brought to life of like, I've never actually thought about that. And so just spend some time with God, meditating on that, thinking about them, researching, investigating in your Bible.
Or reach out to Billy.
Yeah. Or
phone a friend.
Reach out to me. And next episode, oh my gosh.
We're tired here, people.
Next episode, we're going to look at the New Testament. Woohoo! So it should be about half the length of this one, right? Because the Old Testament's 2/3 and the New Testament's only 1/3.
Jesus does some really cool stuff.
He does. Yep. But this conversation should very much enrich the one that we have about the New Testament.
It's going to build off of it for sure.
And so, yeah, go take some time and look through this. Should you read it? Yes. Is it relevant to you? I think we've made that pretty clear. Absolutely. Yes, it very much is so. So until then, yeah, super grateful again that you spent some time, almost an hour with us listening in. We'd appreciate it if you just kind of jump over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and just leave us a review. It helps us, one, for people to search us, but also helps more listeners just come find us. And so we'd really appreciate you if you go hit the like button, follow us, or you can check us out online at fishingformenministries.com, or on Instagram. That's probably a really good place also to reach out, is on our Instagram page. If you have a question, come, shoot us a message on there. We're also on LinkedIn too. That's another way that you can get a hold of us. And so, in either of those, search for Fishing for Men Ministries. So with that, y'all, thanks again for the time. We'll catch you on the next one for the New Testament.